Good morning. This is the BLAINESWORLD podcast that can be found each week on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, uh, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, you name it, you'll be able to find us. We're also at the website www.blainesworld.net. You can also find past shows there as well. I'm your host, Wayne Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. I'm speaking with Victoria Lamberth, who's the artistic director at Hendersonville Theater. And I'll say hi, Victoria. You can wave to all your fans and friends who are watching.
Hello.
And for those who don't know Victoria, she is the busiest person you'll see in the area, in that she not only is artistic director at Hendersonville Theater, but she does about 27 other things at the theater as well. As well. In addition, Victoria, I don't know how you do it, but you also manage to find time to direct, and you also manage time to act as well.
Yes.
Let me ask you a question in this. In terms of all the many different hats you wear, do you have a favorite thing you like doing?
Well, it's interesting because that has transitioned over the years. I truly enjoy directing, I think the most. And artistic directing is a lot like directing in many ways, because it's a organizational duty, just like directing is. So I enjoy both, I guess, equally. The artistic director position has a lot more, I guess, bureaucracy involved in it. So I like the pure direction of a show because it is just being creative and thinking through problems creatively. So there's a lot more creative challenges with just directing a show.
And I think I may have shared my theory on this, but the reason a lot of actors or former actors like directing is because you also don't have to memorize the script, that way.
Yes.
But I'm just looking in behind you, it's just amazing. That sort of gives an indication of just some of the things you're involved in as we speak.
Oh, the calendar behind me.
Right.
Yeah. So we starting, I guess, kind of once we came back from COVID, which really didn't truly happen here until the middle of last year, started expanding programming. And one of our goals to do that was because we knew we had to transition to a professional staff, very similar to what some other theaters in the area are doing. We had been an all volunteer organization for 56 years, and the theater was in a place where it needed some people here full time. So in the process of finding a way to pay staffing as well as covering our overhead costs and also recovering from COVID, we knew we had to sort of reinvent the theater. And so to do that, we expanded programming to not just include our live main stage productions, which we have done forever, but also to include a readers theater program. We're including a lot of special events that are coming in from outside producers. We have started including a concert series that we have once a month here called HT Hometown Sound Series, that we feature local, regional, and national acts that come into our theater that you wouldn't normally see in Hendersonville. We also have started doing a lot of education as well on top of that. We have some summer camps this summer, as well as Missoula Children's Theater coming here at the end of the summer to do a children's camp. So we have we've basically made the theater, except for the weekends that we have to go dark for a tech weekend, pretty much full-time, 365 days a week, 365 days a year, being totally a public space where you have people coming in and out all day long.
And when you mentioned that, in terms of being open 365 days a year, we're talking, and so as you're taping this, July 4th, so you have a full house of people running around there today?
We have, because we are opening on Friday for Rock of Ages, we have multiple people in the building here today, working on whether it's costumes, lighting, set, sound. All of our technicians are here today, kind of getting ready for the show. We have our actors actually coming in at 5:30, the ones that are dancing in the show, to do a dance cleaning. And then so we never really stop, even though it's a holiday weekend, because they were in the middle of tech week, sort of the show has to go on Friday. So we are keeping going, and it's pretty much just what you do when you do theater.
One of the cool things that you've done at Hendersonville, you even changed the name of the theater, and talk a little bit about that. That was a change.
Well, we started out when the theater was originally formed back in 1966. It was Hendersonville Little Theater.
Right.
Somewhere, I think about 10 years ago, we in 2012 we moved to a new building. For many years, we were in a old barn over off of State Street in Hendersonville, and so we moved into a new building. And around the time that happened, the name was changed to Hendersonville Community Theater. We decided as we came out of COVID in 2021, 2022, that in order to truly reflect all the different facets of the theater, that we wanted to take community out of the name and just be known as Hendersonville Theater. The thought process behind that being that although we are still in many ways a community theater, we consider ourselves a theater for our community. And we put our community's actors, and not just Hendersonville actors, but upstate South Carolina and all of Western North Carolina's actors on stage here. But because we are also bringing in, professional shows, because we were also bringing in professional musicians with their bands, that we aren't just what a community theater would normally be. So we felt like that was a more accurate representation of what the theater was becoming.
Okay, I'm curious. You've been in the area for how long?
I moved here in 2011.
Right. So were you ever at the old Hendersonville Theater, the one in the barn?
No, we came here around the time they were making the transition to this building. I think we moved here this summer. They finished their last show in the previous building. So I never was in the old barn.
That was like some facility that I spent, several times walking through the mud and the grass, and.
Yes.
So you're in a beautiful facility now. And talk a little bit, if you would, Victoria, for people who don't know the theater, describe it if you would, and talk about where it is.
Okay, so we are located on about 2 blocks off of Main Street in Hendersonville. If you're familiar at all with Hendersonville, Main Street being the main historic street that most of the people know Hendersonville for, where the Apple Festival is held every year. We're about 2 blocks off of that street on a street called Washington Street. We are in a building that is about 100 years old. It originally was a stone church, and over the years has housed many businesses, and now it houses our theater. And it is a beautiful building. Inside, we have a lovely, when you come in, we have a lovely lobby area and bar area, and we do concessions and beer and wine, and you're allowed to take those into the theater with you. It's why you enjoy the show. And then the theater itself seats about 117 people. It's a wonderful, intimate space. There really is not a bad seat in the house. So even if we do have tiered seatings for our shows, but even if you are in what we would consider the value seats, you are still going to get a great show no matter where you're sitting in that theater.
And like you said, I've never had in a bad seat in the theater as well. Do you also operate behind you? Used to use the other facility. Do you use that as?
So we are no longer doing productions in that facility. We used to use it as a black box theater. It only seated about 60 people. And so during COVID, because it was no longer really feasible for us to continue being able to social distance in that space and do productions, and because we were desperately needing additional storage space. In the time that we've been in this building, we have pretty much outgrown the building, so to speak. So we have in this past year transitioned that building over to short-term storage, which now it's being used for costumes and props. Our goal with that building is to eventually turn it back into a rehearsal and educational space, at the least, if not a performance space eventually, maybe for smaller things. But right now, our initial need just coming out of the pandemic was storage area. So that was kind of our first goal. And until we can build and raise the money to build a tech building, I think that's what it will stay. So hopefully in 3 to 5 years, it will transition back to something more public.
Okay, I hope so too, because boy, I see a lot of very fine black box shows in that theater. I just love it, including Kate was in the show there as well. Not too much, right?
Yeah. I think you're referring to Oleana. Is that the show you saw over there?
Wasn't that in that theater?
Yeah.
Boy, and he hit. That was some show. So I do hope you get back to the smaller shows.
Yes.
Helpful.
And I think we would love to, whether it's in that theater and this theater at some point, and I think we are kind of going that way next season. Having a smaller space allowed us to do some edgier, more dramatic shows. And we are trying to kind of bridge that gap this coming season in 2024, which we have not announced yet. That's going to introduce some things to our audiences as we are rebuilding our audience back. Because obviously, like most theaters, we had to start over from scratch after the pandemic. As we are rebuilding that audience and bringing people new into the theater, we're slowly getting back into doing some more edgier and more dramatic productions, and having that smaller space allowed us to kind of explore that a little better. So hopefully in the future, we'll be able to do that again.
And since we mentioned him, we should give a shout out to Tate. We mentioned Tate Albert. And
Yeah.
Tate Albert's also involved in the theater as well.
Yeah, Tate is my husband. He gets involved in the theater by design. He is officially on staff as our chief sound technician. But he also is does all kinds of things. Official capacity, when we do our live concert series, he is here setting up our sound and mixing our bands, as well as advising us on sound just for every production we do. For instance, in the show that we have opening this Friday, Rock of Ages, it is a rock musical. So this is the first time we've really had a rock band in this space. So as a sound designer, he's had a lot of challenges kind of doing that for the first time. And on top of that, Tate is also in the show playing Dennis Dupree, who is the owner of the Bourbon Room, which is the place where most of the show takes place. So he's kind of pulled double duty on the show, which a lot of our staff has done as well, simply because we still are kind of rebuilding back. And it's kind of taking a village right now to put on a production, especially a large production. So we have a lot of people that are doing multiple things on the show just to sort of make a show of this size get on stage and be producible.
And since you're talking about it, Victoria, for the benefit of folks who don't know the show Rock of Ages, and I think there's a movie too, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a movie. I don't remember I think about 2015 that came out with Tom Cruise and Julianne Hough and Bryan Cranston and Catherine Zeta-Jones. If you have seen the movie, it's probably not a good representation of the original stage play.
So I heard, but what's disappointing, I guess. So Cruise turned down the offer to be in the Hendersonville production. So you had to get
yes. So we reached out to Tom Cruise and he said no, but we got somebody better.
So the benefit of people don't know the show, and I did see the movie, but I didn't love it. It's kind of a strange movie. For the benefit of folks who don't know the show or what it's about, can you give a Reader's Digest version of the show?
So Rock of Ages is very much what we would call a jukebox musical. It takes all the music of the 80s, all the hair band music. So whether it's Def Leppard, Twisted Sister, Bon Jovi, Journey, Foreigner, all those bands that everyone loved in the 80s, it takes their music and puts it into a show. And the show basically is a rock and roll love story. The show takes place in Hollywood in 1987 on the Sunset Strip in Los Angeles. The show is about some German investors that come in and want to tear down this famous Los Angeles rock and roll bar that's kind of based on the Whiskey A Go-Go, if you're familiar at all with that. A bar that has hosted legendary bands who have come in and sort of made their career on this bar. And the show is about also this bar getting torn down. It's about this love story that's developing between two people who work in the bar. And then you have all these kind of wacky side characters that have their kind of own side stories going on that just makes it a very interesting show and just a lot of fun. And it's backed by a live rock band. We have musicians on stage who are part of the show. And it has, we have great music as part of it. It's all songs everybody knows and loves. And it's just a very campy, fun, tongue-in-cheek kind of show that's sort of paying tribute to the 80s in a loving way, but also kind of pointing out some of the funnier parts of it as well. So it's a very fun show, especially for those of us that grew up in the 80s.
Victoria, you're saying that, as you mentioned the groups, and I liked a couple of them, but maybe that's why I didn't love the movie, in that I was in the 60s and 70s, mostly 60s era. The 80s, I don't know, kind of bypassed me, maybe your era. Is the show appropriate for what ages?
The show is very definitely a mature show. It does have, as part of the storyline, there is a strip club in the show. We do not have any kind of nudity or anything like that on stage, but there is very much adult themes, adult language. There is smoking and references to drug use in the show. So it is not a show. I would put the show, we call it a mature rating, but I would say it's very similar to an R-rated movie. So if you do not feel comfortable bringing, I would say 16, 17 and up, but if you're not comfortable bringing your child to a R-rated movie, I would not suggest you bring them to the show.
And thank you for sharing that. That's why I asked. Even though I was surprised you said this, because Hendersonville Theater now is changing in terms of its interpretation, in terms of nudity. After you did Calendar Girls, you did Calendar Girls, Everything Goes, and that was, we'll talk about Calendar Girls later. But back to North Pages. So talk a little bit about some of the casting.
We have, I think, a wonderful cast. I will say the one thing about the show that I am the most proud of is I think we have had, this is probably the largest cast we've had on stage in many years, although there's only 16 people in it. I think almost everyone in the cast plays multiple people, so it feels like a very big cast, and it's a cast of actors who have very big personalities on top of that. So the stage is very full. We also have had more people work on the show than I think any show we've ever had. It's a much bigger show than we've ever done. So we have several young actors in the show that have not done anything with us before. Josh Lura, who is from Tryon, who is playing Drew, which is the romantic lead in the show. Sage Albert, who is playing Sherry, who's the other romantic lead in the show. And then Rowan Bishop, who is on staff here and has been in several shows this season, plays Lonnie. He is playing the narrator. So if you're familiar with the show, Lonnie narrates the entire show and sort of is the person who lives outside the show in a way. Tate Albert, as I mentioned, my husband, is playing Dennis Dupree, the club owner. Matt Wade is our Tom Cruise. So if you've seen the show, the rock star Stacey Jacks, Matt Wade is playing that from Asheville. We have Tiffany Boone from Barnardsville, who's playing Justice, who is the owner of the strip club that I mentioned earlier. We also have Daniel Sandoval and Hogan McLam. They are our German investors. They're very funny father and son Germans who come in to try to tear down the strip. And then we have Jennifer Worthing, who is making her debut on stage with us, who plays the hippie protester who is trying to keep the strip from being torn down. And then we also have an amazing ensemble of actors. And I think in this show, ensemble is basically a misnomer. The ensemble basically plays multiple characters, everything you can imagine, from the mayor of Los Angeles to producers, to rock stars, to groupies. They play everything and they hardly leave the stage. So it's really not an ensemble part. We have Allison Starling, Derek Hill, Beth Norris, Brenda Craig, and Madeline Hull. And Madeline's also our choreographer, who has done an amazing job. So all of those people have sort of come together to sort of build this amazing, what I would call an ensemble cast, because it's really, like I said, hardly anybody ever leaves the stage. And it's just a very over the top, fun, having a great time, creating this kind of rock concert kind of feel to the show.
Is this the largest crew you ever directed?
This is actually not the largest crew I've ever directed, but it definitely feels like the most complicated show I've ever directed. It definitely has, when you see the set, you'll understand. We have a room that pushes out in the set. We have fans, fogs, moving lights, everything, every technical effect that you could possibly get in this little tiny theater, we are doing in the show. We have neon signs. If you name it, we're trying to do it. So we're doing a lot of things we've never taken on. The show itself is kind of very demanding, with a lot of very quick changes and a lot of scenes that don't really ever end. So it has a lot of elements that make it a very different kind of show than a lot of traditional musicals.
By the way, a compliment to whoever's doing your sets. I don't know if the same person is doing it, but you had another show recently. It was another one. I'm trying to think which one. We had a beautiful set. It was a recent show. It wasn't Calendar Girls. It was the one before after Calendar Girls.
Are you talking about Hill House, where the room came out in the middle of the show?
This was where there were 4 women.
Oh, Savannah Sipping Society.
I have to give a
Yes.
compliment. I mean, that was a beautiful set.
Mhm.
Anything I've ever seen at at your place. It was really well done.
So Beth Norris, who's actually an actor, one of the ensemble members in the show, directed that show, and she designed that set, and it was a gorgeous set. We have, we are now at a place where every show we're trying to up a little bit on our production quality, and unfortunately, the better the sets get, the harder it is on the next show to kind of up that. So it's got to become a little bit of a challenge. This show, because of the nature of the show, is a bigger set than I think we've done in a long time, because it has a second level and it has all these kind of things going on in it. But every show we're trying to really get there and make our sets really imaginative and attractive and very visually appealing. So that's kind of one of our big goals this year.
And back to the show, one last thing. I don't know if you mentioned the musicians, or did you mention who musicians in it?
Yes, we have a band of 4 in the show. Lenora Tom is our music
Oh,
director,
great.
and she is also conducting and playing the keyboards for the show, and she has just done a wonderful job. And then we have our drummer is David Bruce.
Great.
We have a lead guitarist named Adam Rose and a bass guitarist, Brett Anderson. They're all professional musicians, I believe, out of the Asheville area. And they have come together. We've actually only had them in rehearsal a couple of times this week, knowing that we're just going into tech. It has made an amazing difference in the show. I will say these are not easy. This is not easy music, because it is 80s rock. Our lead guitarist is playing some amazing guitar solos, and we knew we needed somebody that was over the top amazing because of this kind of level of guitar work that we needed. And so when you come see this, you're going to see that level of guitar work like you got in the 80s with these bands.
No, and thank you also for bringing, live performers, because you and I thought just love it as opposed to a track. It's just
Yes.
a feeling. And the 2 of the 4 people you mentioned, Lenore, I'm so glad you got her, because she hasn't done a musical for a while yet, so it's great you got her. And David Bruce is one of my favorites, so him on the drums is just going to be fantastic. The show itself, specifics, when does it start and all that good stuff?
So we open July 7th, and we close July 23rd. So it runs for 3 weekends. We do Fridays and Saturdays at 7:30 and Sundays at 3 p.m.
Okay, and we should mention people, even though a lot of people say this all the time, but this one, people better get tickets early because you're going
Yes.
to.
So out of the 9 shows, 6 shows are already have low ticket warnings, which means we've already sold out half or more of the theater. I will say our opening weekend is already extremely sold. There are still a few tickets left for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday if you were to get them now, but not many. And then definitely going in the second and third weekend, we're already showing a lot of those shows being over half sold or more. So if you are wanting to get tickets I would suggest going to hvltheater.org immediately, or calling our box office at 828-692-1082 and getting them as soon as possible.
Let me just have you repeat that. So in terms of the tickets online, best bet is, what was that website again?
HVL Theater, and it's theater is spelled THEATRE.org. And you can go online and just go shows and events and see it on there, or you can just scroll down and it's at the top of the page and just click on it and you can purchase tickets there. We also have a box office number. It's 828-692-1082.
But that's only when it's booked, so it's open, I guess, at certain times, not all the time, right?
Yeah, we are only here. Usually our box office is open Wednesday, Thursday, and Fridays. We have been extremely busy. So if you do get a voicemail and you call during the day on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, just leave a message. We will get back to you as soon as we can. The phone has been ringing nonstop. So if you may go to voicemail, do not panic. Somebody will get back to you.
Okay, I will mention, everybody says, get tickets early. On this one, just nature of the show, it sounds like it's going to be, already it's going to be a success.
Mm-hmm.
To your credit, well, you hit a couple of home runs already this season. You just briefly, you can just mention those, and then we'll go wrap up with what's coming up in the future. But you had Calendar Girls. That was also a big success, right?
Yes, we pretty much, We sold out, I believe, with maybe an exception of one show, every show of Calendar Girls, to the point that we added an extra show, which we knew it was going to be a big success just because people absolutely loved the movie and there was a lot of buzz surrounding that show.
And again, the other one you mentioned, the Beth directed, what was it, that show also?
Savannah Sipping Society,
And that
also
popular.
very, very funny show. And so it was also a huge success. We sold, I would say, over 95%. The last weekend was completely sold out.
Just to your credit, I mean, just picking out, I think, like really good shows, really shows that have appeal to lots of people.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can ask you, I won't put you on the spot for the new season, you haven't announced it officially, but do you have anything else remaining this season? You do have.
Yeah, well, we do have a concert coming up in July. Everything is Rosy on July 29th, which is the Wendy Jones Trio. If you are familiar with Wendy Jones, she does a lot of professional music around Hendersonville and Western North Carolina. She has a Rosemary Clooney tribute that we've actually done here previously. It was very popular. We actually did several shows of that in the past. This time we're only doing one show. And we expect that to sell out as well. And then we have an August music concert with a bluegrass night with Buncombe Turnpike and Holler Choir, which are two very famous local bluegrass bands. I would suggest getting tickets for that ahead of time as well. That's August 26th. We also have Mac Arnold returning in September. He was back in January, came here. We consider this a command performance because we sold his show out in January in 3 days. And then our next big show of the season is Young Frankenstein in October 13th through 29th. That show is already selling well. It has had a cult following, as many people know. So we expect that to also be a big seller coming up this fall. And just want to say, we also have some summer camps coming up in the next few weeks. I mentioned that we have Missoula's Children's Theater in August. In July, we have several camps for high school as well as middle and high school dancers. If you are interested, you can go to our website and look under education. There's the listings of them. We've already had a camp that passed for middle school actors, but there is a high school acting camp and some middle and high school dance camps if you're interested.
Now, shout out to the person involved in those. Who runs those camps?
So Beth Norris, which we talked about, is our education director, and Sage Albert, who is in playing Sherry in Rock of Ages, is running our next few camps. Who has a background, graduated from Elon University in theater and music, and also has a minor in dance. So she is teaching those classes.
And again, you went over quickly, but the one show I'll encourage people to see is Young Frankenstein, just a fun show.
Mm-hmm.
It's also not a small show either. You're not taking.
It is not a small show. In fact, I would say it's a bigger show than this one. So when we took these on, and really they're back to back, but they're not, because this one ends in July and the next one doesn't go up until October. So it gives us a good 3-month turnaround to get the next one up. But we knew we were taking on 2 really large musicals this season. And we did that really on purpose because last year, because of the kind of uncertainty of the health environment, we purposely picked shows that had 10 people or less in it for every show. So this year, we just really wanted to come back strong and come back with a bang and do some large musicals that we had not been able to do in several seasons. And we wanted to make sure that we pick some things that were going to have, like you said, a wide appeal to a lot of people. So those were our best picks, we felt like.
And who's directing Young Frankenstein?
Elizabeth DeVault is directing Young Frankenstein. She is relatively new to this area. She moved up here, I believe, from the upstate South Carolina, and Patricia Sands is music directing that show, who has been around the Western North Carolina Theater, and I believe she works at Western as well. So she's pretty well known in the area.
And Kim, remind me when we get close to that show, I'd love to do another podcast on that.
Okay.
Victoria, one last time to give the key information. So the upcoming show opens when?
Rock of Ages runs July 7th through July 23rd, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Friday and Saturday evening at 7:30, Sundays at 3 p.m. And to get tickets, go to hvltheater.org or call 828-692-1082.
And of course, you mentioned you spelled theater the correct way. Is that correct?
We spell theater the British way, Theatre.
It
Yes.
seems everybody is spelling it that way here too, so it's. Anyway, Victoria, as always, thank you very much for being my guest on this special edition of the Blaine's World podcast. Also, I'd like to thank my producer, Cappy Cassetti, and I look forward to seeing you in person sometime soon, but folks are in for a treat if they see this show. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Blaine.
I want to say goodbye and just stay with me right afterwards. So we'll
Okay.
see you soon.